In almost every religion, humanity is described at the beginning as holding a lofty and exalted position. But after committing a mistake, an act of disobedience toward God, human beings were forced to leave that high place and descend to earth. And here, on earth, they would go through a great test, so that after passing it, they could once again return to their original exalted state. But let's ask honestly, are these stories really convincing? That's what we are going to explore today. We will start by looking at the accounts found in the Abrahamic religions. Then, we will highlight the logical problems they raise. And after that, we will explore a fuller, more rational story, one that makes sense, one that keeps God perfect, creation flawless, and the fall of humanity meaningful. Judaism. According to the book of Genesis in the Torah, Adam and Eve lived in the Garden of Eden. God commanded them not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The serpent tempted Eve. She ate the fruit and then gave some to Adam. As a result, their eyes were opened. They became aware of their nakedness, and they disobeyed God. This is called the fall of man. And the main reason for their expulsion is what later became known as original sin, mistrusting God and obeying the temptation of Satan. The outcome, death, suffering, and separation from God entered human life. In short, the cause was disobedience, eating the forbidden fruit. But here's a rational problem. If God created everything, then why create humans in such a way that they could be tempted? Why put the tree in front of them? Why create the serpent that would inevitably tempt them? Doesn't this make God a partner in the very act he condemns? Or else, does it mean he was powerless, unable to create differently? If so, humanity suffers because of his design. Christianity. Christians accept the story of Genesis, but they give it a deeper meaning. Again, this is the fall of man, and the root cause of humanity's expulsion is original sin, mistrusting God and yielding to temptation. The result, death, suffering, and separation from God became part of human life. But in Christian theology, this original sin can be undone only through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Now, notice, the same rational issues are still there. But here we also face another problem, divine justice. If Adam and Eve sinned thousands of years ago, why should their children, people who don't even remember the act, still be punished for it? Why must Jesus be sacrificed so others can be forgiven? Was God in need of a sacrifice? In this story, we are faced with a God who seems unjust. Islam. The Qur'an also tells the story of Adam and his wife. God allowed them to eat from any fruit except from one specific tree. Satan deceived them, and they ate from it. Afterwards, they became aware of their nakedness and felt regret. God accepted Adam's repentance, but still sent him and his descendants down to earth for a time of testing. So here, the reason for expulsion is not inherited sin. It's simply a temporary act of disobedience and being deceived by Satan. But again, the same rational questions come up. Why would God create humanity in such a way that they would fall from their high station? Why design life so that we must endure so much suffering just to return to where we originally were? Have the Abrahamic religions misunderstood humanity's fall? So, are the Abrahamic accounts simply wrong? Not exactly. The problem is not that they are false, but that they are incomplete. They need to be filled in and completed, so the story becomes clear with no contradictions. A story in which God remains perfect, creation remains flawless, and humanity's fall makes sense. So how do we reach this fuller story? The answer lies in the mystery of human creation. God, in his full wisdom, created with a purpose, the recreation of himself, because God is the being who eternally recreates himself. We humans, who were originally angels, burning with love for God, were chosen to unite with him. And so God gave us human bodies, but he also tainted us with ego. And that ego is what caused our fall from paradise. This is where the real story of humanity's expulsion begins, with the contamination of ego. Ego, the mother of all sins. Now think about it. What is the root of every sin? When someone lies, it's for their own benefit, the me. When someone pursues lust, isn't it for their own pleasure, even if it harms others? And pride, doesn't arrogance come straight from ego? It's the same with theft, violence, envy, you name it. All sins are born from ego, from seeing ourselves as separate, as the center, from believing that others are not part of us. And once we see others as separate, we give ourselves permission to step on them for our own gain. Now ask yourself, isn't all the pain and suffering of humanity rooted in this ego? Isn't ego the true cause of every war, every injustice, every form of scarcity? Exactly. That's the heart of it. Without ego, this very world becomes paradise. To understand this better, let's imagine something. What if human beings woke up? What if they truly saw others as part of themselves? What if everyone wanted for others exactly what they wanted for themselves? In that world, what one person has belongs to all, and what all possess belongs to each. So tell me, would there still be theft? Would people lie? Would envy exist? Would anyone lack love? Would anyone go hungry? Would nations pour their wealth into war? Would people cheat or do sloppy work? The answer is no. And with a little reflection, we realize that kind of place would be paradise itself. Understanding a world without ego. Paradise is not far away. It's not imaginary. Paradise is wherever people strip away ego and dissolve into Venus. And when they do, they gain immense power, able to achieve anything together. We have seen glimpses of this already here in our own world. Now just imagine, if all humanity let go of ego, what vast abundance would suddenly appear for everyone. That abundance is paradise, appearing rationally and tangibly. Paradise has always been here. We were simply keeping it from ourselves. If you want to truly understand paradise, imagine this: a world where no one acts only for themselves, but everyone acts for the whole, for the we, of which they are a part. In that world, paradise would come instantly. It would be a place with no suffering, where each person experiences only what they truly desire, and desires only what they experience. That is the definition of true paradise. Why did God make ego so sweet? But here's another question. Why did God allow humanity to be tainted with ego, something so sweet, so tempting? Because for human beings to become worthy of paradise, of union with God, they first had to taste what it feels like to be separate, to be someone. They had to feel the sweetness of individuality. But not just alone. Everyone had to taste ego, so that humanity could see just how hard and painful life becomes, how far from paradise it takes us. And then, by rejecting sins that all spring from ego, humans could purify themselves and return to oneness with existence, free from pride, free from the I, back to what they were before, but now with wisdom. This time, after passing the test of earthly life, they would understand why ego must never return. The forbidden fruit would never again be tempting. So the descent of humanity to earth was not a punishment. It was education. It was growth. God wanted humanity to know only Venus, only the whole matters. And any part of creation that tries to rise above the rest only causes its own fall. We had to suffer through the pain of ego in order to learn why it must be let go. Ego is like muddy water. It cannot rise to the sky while carrying mud with it. The dirt must be left behind. Only the pure water can evaporate and ascend. And this is exactly the story of human creation, to be refined and prepared for paradise. Conclusion. God's purpose in creating humanity was incredibly high, the recreation of himself, transforming human beings into his own likeness. The fall was never an accident. It was not a mistake. It was part of a wise design. Ego, our sense of being separate from others, was the sin humanity fell into, not realizing why separation was so harmful. Paradise is the realm where ego does not exist, where only we exists. Hell, full of pain and suffering, is where each person sees only themselves and uses others for their own gain. And so, once humanity learns the destructive nature of ego and frees itself from it, melting into existence, uniting with God, it will quickly return to its exalted station. And here, God's justice is clear. Ego was never forced on humanity. It was sweet, attractive, and freely chosen. And through that choice, God's plan unfolds. Human beings gain the greatest lesson of all and become worthy of union with Him. That is the true purpose of human creation.
The content you just listened to is part of the teachings of Sayyid Said Tagavi Zadeh in the field of theology and the pursuit of true happiness. These teachings are interconnected, so many of the unclear points will become clearer in the upcoming episodes. For this reason, it is important to follow the series from the beginning in order to fully benefit from its inner value. Additionally, there will be separate programs dedicated to answering frequently asked questions. Until the next episode, goodbye and may God be with you.